Today, we're going to talk about the three needs of a human being. Now, you might think that there's lots of needs of people, right? But these are the three main needs that without these three needs, you can't exist. So it's actual human needs, not the needs meaning that I need something, the needs that God gives us that we don't have a choice about. And those three are Banai, Chaya, and Mizona. That means children, life, which is basic health, and Mizona, which is sustenance, like wealth. And it says Mizona uses the word revicha, and revicha basically is an abundance. So it's an abundance of wealth. So either a person can have all three, a little bit of all three. Most of us have 2 out of 3, which basically means that we would have either good children. What does it mean by children? I'm going to go into that detail. So the first one is children, and children means to actually have children, or to have nachas from your children, to have happiness from your children. There was an interesting story with the Rebbe many years ago that there were 2 couples that couldn't have children for many, many years. And they came to the Rebbe and asked the Rebbe for a bracha, for a blessing. Maybe I should just put mute all, right? Mute all. Let me just put mute all.
Teriyaki chicken.
Okay, I muted it. Anyway, so one second. You know what I forgot to do is turn the recording. Okay. So the rabbi gave a blessing to both of these couples that they should have children. One couple went home and said, okay, I got a blessing from the Rebbe, so I guess I'm going to wait around and wait till I have a child. The other person came home, and what do you think they did? They went to the store and bought a baby carriage, and went to the store and bought a baby bed, and bought some clothes for the baby. And they said, we believe that we're going to have a child, a healthy child. And very interesting, a year passes, and the couple who bought the carriage, they actually, which is interesting, they actually had a baby. And the couple that did absolutely zero didn't have a baby. And, usually I know that in Jewish, or even I think specifically in Russian families, they never buy anything before the baby's born. But in this case, it was different because these are people who couldn't have children. It's not like, you get pregnant, you're going to have a child, so you better don't buy anything until the baby's born. But this was different. This was, you needed to do something to make a change so that you'll have a child. So if the Rebbe gives you a blessing to have children, you should take that blessing as if it's like something that you need to do something about, not to just, you have to have a vessel for the blessing. The blessing has to come into a vessel. You can't just expect everything to just show up, and that's it. So I find from this story that there's always something we need to do for the blessing. So the first blessing that we usually will get is about our children. Now, it's very easy to say, okay, we have a blessing of children. Now that the children are born, what do? Very important that we take care of these children and that we have an amazing home for them. Make them comfortable, go to parenting classes, make sure that each of them, if they need therapy, they go to therapy. If they don't need therapy, they don't. But whatever it is that you find in each of these kids, look at the child. What is so special about this specific child, and do something about it. Don't just wait for God to throw something at you, because we know how little children sometimes can give you problems. Teenagers can sometimes give you problems. Older kids can sometimes give you problems. Even when they're married, they'll give you problems. So when we talk about having the blessing of children, it's not the only actual child, but it's also what happens with those children, how they grow up, what nachas, what comfort, what beautiful things come out of these children. So that's the first blessing. First blessing that God gives us as children. Not everybody has children. Not everybody has good children. Not everybody has happiness from their children. So this is the first blessing that we receive from God. That is the first one. The second one that we see, the second human need and a person needs is he needs what? He needs health. Okay. So it's easy for us to say, yes, we need help. Pray to God and say, please, God, give us health. Yes, you can say Tehillim. Yes, you can say, pray, but you also have to make a vessel. So what's the vessel of health? The vessel of health is very complicated. Number one, food. Make sure you eat the proper food. You eat 3 times a day. You go according to what the Rambam says. I think we've once learned about food. The Rambam says, don't eat right away when you wake up in the morning. Eat 2 hours later. Let your digestive system work it up. Don't eat in the middle of the night. Try not to eat a few hours before you go to sleep. Eat 3 meals a day. Don't eat too much. Don't eat too little. So you need to really figure out when it comes to food and health, yes, that is a blessing from God, but it's also something that we make the vessel for this specific blessing. Number one, it's the food, right? We said about the food. We said make sure not to eat sugar or white flour or all these crazy stuff that we really, 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 shouldn't be eating. And we go on and we see the second thing. Okay, that was the food about the Rambam, what the Rambam says about food. The second thing is exercise. Make sure that you're fit. You either walk every day, or you move, or you do some sort of exercise, or you stretch in the morning, whatever you can do to move around to actually do exercise. So that's the second part of health. The third part of health, because health is very complicated. So you say, I want to be healthy. Yes, you're eating the right food, you're doing the right exercise, but you're still not feeling well. It's still hard for you. What does that mean? It means that you have the third aspect of it, and that is how you think. So thoughts are in the mind, not your mind, but the mind. The mind basically means I have all these thoughts in my brain that I have every day, the normal thoughts. And it keeps going. And it keeps moving. And all those thoughts can either make you a happy person, or make you an angry person, or make you a disappointed person. And what happens if you're not so happy? It says that interesting that 5 minutes of anger is 5 hours of compromised immunity. In other words, if you're upset for 5 minutes, the next 5 hours are going to be so bad for you. Your immunity is going to go down, and you can get sick at that time. So it's interesting to note that when you talk about health, it takes in so many things. It's not just your physical health. It's your mental health affecting your physical health. And when we say, it's interesting, I noticed that when I was sick at the end of March, after Purim, when I did get sick with COVID, I noticed the reason that I got sick was because my son was very sick and in the hospital, and I had no way of connecting to him, and so my heart was painful, and I was disappointed and very upset, and I didn't know what to do. And my other son was homesick, and my brother was sick, and my parents were sick. So in my mind, my head was so sick, even though I'm usually very healthy. My immunity is never compromised. I eat well, I exercise, I think positive thoughts as much as I could. But why did I get so sick? Because my immunity was compromised because I was upset. So when you're upset, your immunity gets compromised and it goes down and you get sick. So if you look at this whole picture, we have the first, this is a human need, but we're saying, God, help us. We pray to God. We say we're sick. How come? But we also have to help ourselves. It has to go both ways. I actually heard today that people were saying, okay, you know, when King David, when he was anointed as a king, he was anointed quietly in his home. The king before was still king. King Saul was still king. What does it mean that he was anointed as a king? Doesn't mean much, because he couldn't be a king. He could only be anointed as a king. It took about 7 more years for him to actually be recognized that he was anointed as a king. And so you see here that it's 2 ways. It's not just the person themselves, it's everyone around them has to make sure that they are your surroundings is just as important as you are. So whatever is going on in your life around you, the friends you have, the job you have, all the things that you have all around you can be compromised. Well, how can it be compromised? When you do not have good friends, when you have a bad influence around you, when your job is not very healthy, the job is making you completely crazy, it's driving you up a wall, and maybe other things that surround you. Maybe your husband's driving you up a wall. Maybe the kids are driving you crazy. That all is connected to the human need called health. Now that I think is actually a subject in itself, to really understand what does it mean to have the proper health. And when we get to that mind thought and we think positive thoughts, we need to think that life is an opportunity. Life is not something that just kind of goes by and we have problems. Yes, maybe we have a difficult, difficult boss. Maybe we have difficult friends, but sometimes we need to look at that as an opportunity for growth. How are we going to deal with it? Are we going to be stuck with that health problem? Or are we going to move forward and see how we can make things better in our life instead of holding it back completely? And then it says, but then if you really want to make that change and become better, it says, Yagaiti umatsasi. If I try, I will succeed. If I don't try, I'll never get anywhere. How am I going to get somewhere? And that's what this month is about. When we talk about the health, it's not just about the physical health. It's not just about the spiritual health. It's not just about the mental health. It's also what we do with our behavior. When we go away from the bad behavior, it says, Gedola tshuva shemekareves hashchina. When we do tshuva and we say, we're not going to repeat this terrible behavior, we're not going to keep being angry so our immunity is compromised, we're not going to be running somewhere and jumping over hoops for someone, we're going to do this for ourselves properly, then we get closer to the Shekhinah. Then we are closer to godliness, 100% to godliness. Im tashuv Yisrael tashuv alai. You're now returning to somewhere else. When you say the word tshuva, to return, you're returning to your inner self. Because inside, you really have the power. You really have the power to overcome whatever you have. You have the power to overcome your patterns of being angry and upset and disappointed so that we don't compromise this immunity. You have to reclaim who you truly are. Go away from that behavior. Get closer to God. Go to the higher life. Recognize who I am, who I really am. I'm really that person who can overcome everything. Because if I'm in this world, I have the power. God gave me this power. He gave me something that many people don't have. This is why it is going back to this concept of how to stay healthy. So we said again, food, exercise, thoughts, tshuva, how we repent, how we go back to ourselves, and also how we behave. How we behave, and we are going back to where we really belong. The last thing is emunah, faith. If I have 100% faith in God, I have faith for the good and faith for the bad. If we know the story, there were two stories. One was Rabbi Akiva, and he was called Kol ma da'avid l'tav avid. Everything you do is for the good. Remember the story of Rabbi Akiva. He was going to a town, and what happened? He came into the town, and nobody had a place for him to sleep. So he went to sleep out in the forest. As he was sleeping in the forest, he had a donkey. He had a, what else did he have? I can't even remember. He had a candle, right? Oh, and he had a rooster to wake him up in the morning. So what happened? In the middle of the night, the donkey got taken. So what did Rabbi Akiva say? Kol ma da'avid d'tav avid. Everything that happens for the good. Then what happens next? The next thing that happened is his rooster got eaten by a tiger. Oh no, now he doesn't have anything to wake him up in the morning. Then comes a big wind and blows out his candle. So he doesn't even have a fire to study by. So what did Rabbi Akiva say? Kol ma da'avid l'tav avid. Everything that happens is happening for a good reason. What happens in the morning? He gets up in the morning, and what does he see? He sees the whole town. There was a robber in the town, robbed everybody, murderers in the town, killed everybody, and he was saved because had he had a donkey, they could have heard it. Had he had a rooster, they could have heard it. Had he had a candle, they could have seen him. So God saved him because he always knew that everything that happens for a good reason. That's one level of emunah, faith in God. Then there's the higher level. That's the level of who? That's the level of Nachem Ish Gamzu. If you remember the story, I think I've told this once before. There was a person named Nachem Ish Gamzu. He was going to the king because the king made a decree on the Jewish people, and he wanted to bring him a bunch of treasures, so he should take the decree away. On the way to the king, he comes to an inn, and he sleeps there overnight. In the middle of the night, the innkeeper and his cronies, they see all the jewels that Nachem Ish Gamzu had, and they take the jewels and they put instead in the treasure chest, they put a bunch of sand and rocks. And Nachem Ish Gamzu, he's going to the king. He thinks he has the treasures, but what does he have? He has rocks and sand. So he comes to the palace, and what happens? The king opens up the beautiful whatever he had, beautiful big box, and he opens it up, and what does he see? He sees sand. God makes a miracle. The Malach Gavriel, which is a messenger of God, comes down, an angel, and he puts himself into one of the advisors. And the advisor says, maybe these stones and sand is the same stones and sand that his forefather Abraham was fighting against the five kings, and he had this, this sand. Maybe it's the same sand, and they turn into arrows. Okay. So they try the sand, and the sand turns into arrows. And of course, Nachamish Gamzu says, Gamzu Latova, this is also for the good. And it turns out that the sand were arrows. And so the king gives him a bunch of treasures, and he sends him off, and he says, I took the decree off, and everything's going to be fine. So he goes on the way home, and of course, he stops in the same inn. And the innkeeper and his cronies are really upset. Like, how did you come back? What happened to you? So he says, very simply, I went to the king, and we had the sand from your garden, and it turned into arrows. Oh, really? So they go to the king, and they bring the sand from their garden. And of course, what happens at the end? The innkeeper and his cronies got killed because it wasn't arrows. It was just a bunch of sand. So that's the story of Nachamish Gamzu. He always said Gamzu Tova. This is also for the good. So this is the idea of Amunah. This is the idea of faith. So that's faith. So faith is the highest level. It's very easy to have faith when everything's going good. But when there's a problem, not that easy to have faith. I mean, I know lots of times when I had a hard time having faith, I have to think to myself, wait a second. God is testing us. We need to have faith. Not so easy, but that's how it works. So that's the thing. So we were talking about the three human needs. The first need that God gives us has to do with children. Also, you should know that children is your offsprings. If you do not have actual children, it could be other people that you're teaching. So that's the first need. The second need that God gives us is health. And the third need is sustenance. Okay. So money. Money, everybody knows what money is. There was an interesting story that I was listening to talking about money. The Jews had a hard time with money all the time. I mean, they were traders for many, many years, but the Tsar and they had all kinds of pogroms, and they became very poor and this and that. And I was listening yesterday to somebody talk about during the time of George Washington, when George Washington was trying to fight the British for the colonies, for America. He was in Valley Forge, and if you know the story with Valley Forge, it was the last strength that Washington had. He thought he was going to lose at that point. And it was freezing. It was the middle of the winter. And it happened to be that there was a Jewish guy that had run away from some pogroms in Europe. And he came to America. And he joined the army. And in the army, of course, he's freezing cold because it's like, it's really, really bad. And what happens? It's time for Hanukkah. So he remembered his father gave him a Hanukkah menorah before he left Europe. And he pulls out his Hanukkah menorah and he starts to light the first candle. As he lights the first candle, he starts to cry. He says, the Jews have gone through so much. They're so poor. They have no money. They have no sustenance. They don't have anything. And here I am, even the poorest of the poor. We don't even have clothes. We don't even have shoes. We have no boots like the British have. We're just regular people. And we're trying to fight here. And it's just not going to happen. It's terrible. But he starts to strengthen himself and he says, look, here's the Hanukkah candles. This is the miracle of Hanukkah. We also need a miracle here. But he starts crying because it's hard for him. And of course, George Washington walks up to him and he says to him, what's up? What's wrong? Why are you so upset? So he said, today is the first night of Hanukkah and I'm lighting the Hanukkah menorah. And George Washington says to him, you know what? You are part of the Jewish nation. The Jewish nation are prophets. Can you tell me if we're going to win this war? What do you think? The guy, after he lit his Hanukkah candle, starts to think, okay, I lit these candles. This symbolizes the light, the little light in the darkness. And we are just the little light, just like the Chashmonaim of old in the story of Hanukkah, that they had to fight against the Assyrian Greeks. We too are fighting against the oppressors, the British. So he says to George Washington, I understand that we are very small and we are very cold and we don't have any clothes and we're having a hard time. But you know what? Just like Hanukkah, we are going to win too. And George Washington looks at him and goes, thank you. That's what I needed to hear. Very interesting that right after that, the next morning, they actually won the British and they started pushing the British back after this one little story, because he gave the encouragement to George Washington. And this was the year 1773 or something, whatever. Anyway, in 1776, when maybe it was 1775, 1776, they got the Declaration of Independence. Right after that, what happens? So this guy gets called in by George Washington, and he says, I'd like to talk to you. And he says, what? He says, I have a medal for you. And he gave him a medal, and on the medal it said, the little light of Hanukkah saved us from the darkness. And he gave it to this guy to remind him that the encouragement that the Jews, the Jewish people, a small little people, even if they're poor or they don't have that much, God is giving them something that they can see future. And this is the idea of the Mezayna Revicha. This is the idea of sustenance. So we're hoping that too will happen. And we understand that these are three needs, and not necessarily do we have all three of them complete. Sometimes people can have one, sometimes two, sometimes all three. But it's a very small chance that we have all three complete, because everybody has something small missing. So we lack in one of those. And you must think to yourself, which one is most important? The children, the health, or the sustenance? It's a hard thing to eat, because it's hard to really understand which one is more important. It's funny because I know that there's some stories from the Baal Shem Tov that somebody would come and cry and say that they don't have children. I don't remember who it was. I can't remember the story very well, but I do remember that he asked for children, and the Baal Shem Tov says, but he'll have to give up his wealth if he wants to have children. So he had to give up one other need to be able to have children. So that was a very interesting point. So look, we can go down in some of these ideas, but we know that at the end, we're going to end up going up to the highest. So this is basically life. Okay, so life has these three needs. And we go on in our life now to the idea of this month. And this month is the month of Elul, which basically we understood that if we talked about Elul before, we talked about the idea of tshuva, repentance. We also talked about the idea of connection. It's more of a connection to God. Why? Because Tishrei is the time that we connect to God completely, which is Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So we need to start working on our connections to God. And if we look at the connections to God, we will understand that this is the month of marriage. And it actually works out, or relationships, if you want to say. It actually works out that this month, on the 11th of Elul, it's the marriage of the Rebbe Rashab, who was the fifth Chabad Rebbe, and it's also the marriage on the 13th of Elul of the sixth Chabad Rebbe. So it happens to be this month has some very interesting marriage information in it. So it's connecting. We're connecting. And we have to really think, how do we receive these brachas? So we said the three needs, and we have to think of ways that we can receive these three needs, because in the month of Elul, it's a time to really contemplate and account, how are we going to receive those three needs? How are we going to get good for our children? How are we going to get good in the health department? How are we going to get good in sustenance? I mean, those three things are not very easy. Those are difficult things. Those are core things. And so those things, we have to think of what we will do extra now to get these blessings. And when we say we're going to work on different things in our lives, we have to really understand what we need to work on. We need to do something extra. And also, besides the point, we have to have gratitude. Gratitude that whatever we already have, that we're happy with. When we get up in the morning, what do you say? You say, Moda'ani, thank you, God, for giving me a beautiful new day. Because when we get up right away, we need to have gratitude and say, today is the day that I am going to feel happy and in a good mood. Why? Because good things have happened to me. Even though you may think there are difficult things in our lives, of course, but we have to pinpoint. I know that Ina told me that she writes at night, the night before she writes 3 things that she has gratitude for. Yes, that's a great idea, because in the morning we have to wake up with a positive feeling that we have done something and that we are going forward. And thank you for everything that we already get. And the more, if you're going on a wave, and you're surfing, if you fight the wave, you're going to drown. But if you just kind of go with the wave, go with the flow, it works out. So it's very important that we really understand that that what we need to do is we need to try to go with the flow and get to the point that the wave that we're riding might be more difficult than other people's waves, but we will get to the place that we want to get. And the only way we can get to that place is doing the best we can. So interesting, today happens to be my Hebrew birthday. It's the 12th of Elul. And I know that a lot of you have heard what I said yesterday, but I just want to wish everyone here that they should have the threefold blessing, which is nachas from your children. The second one is health. Health is very important in all different ways: physical health, mental health, emotional health, etc. And the third one is wealth. In other words, yes, you should have money, but you should also realize what to do with that money. In other words, the money that you give to others is the money that you're going to die with. It's going to go with you to the next world. The money that you keep here will not stay with you. Where's it going to go? I mean, who knows? Okay, maybe your children or grandchildren or whatever it is, but it's not, you can't take the money to the next world. What you could take is your good deeds. So the more money you give to tzedakah, the more you give to others, the more you're going to see this money in the next world, in the future world. And not just that, it'll also come with you the time of Mashiach. In other words, this is the money that you deserve, because you've got this money to give. You don't have money to keep for yourself, because the I is what mistake we made when we ate from the tree during the time of Adam. Actually, Adam did, but we were with Adam because all of us are made a part of Adam. So in other words, we ate from that tree. We became I, and I is not good. A we is great. In other words, we are part of something. So we need to be in this together. So every single person has to know that because we're getting towards Rosh Hashanah, we all have to think about this month. What are we going to do more to become a we? What are we going to do together? And how are we going to get through this Rosh Hashanah? I heard something amazing that some Kabbalists, I heard it on one of the WhatsApp that was going around, that he was saying, this is the last Rosh Hashanah in exile. And may it be so. May it be the last Rosh Hashanah in exile, and may we all go speedily with Mashiach to Yerushalayim, and not have to run to Yerushalayim, but be brought to Yerushalayim through peace and harmony and happiness, not running away from this country, because we don't want that to happen either. I know it's been a difficult year for all of us, but may this year turn around and become the best year possible. This coming Tishri should be the best year, and we should all be happy and healthy and good children. And then those of you who need wealth should have more money, and those of you who need a shidduch should have a shidduch. Whatever else you need, I don't know whatever people need, but whatever you need, God should give you, and you should be very happy this year with Mashiach. So if anyone has any other questions about what I spoke about, the 3 important needs, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I missed the beginning, but I want the recording. I want to forward it to my kids.
Okay.
When is it going to be available?
I can ask Maisha to do it tomorrow morning, if you want. I won't remember. Because the thing is, I told Irina I would give her from last week, and I never did it because I wasn't here. I was in Palm Springs for 4 days. Someone gave us a timeshare. So that's what it was last week. That's why I wasn't able to do that. But yeah.
Can you then forward me the link? And also, sorry I came late, but I'm so happy I made it. So
I'm happy you made it too. I wasn't sure you were going to make it, but yeah, I'm really happy you came. Do you have any specific thing that really stood out, and that's why you want to give it to your children?
Yeah. No, we do talk about it very often, about children and wealth and health. It's just, I was looking at it from a little bit different perspective based on my life experience. I see that some people are extremely rich, and they do have kids at the beginning, but then, what
the kids don't want to talk to them.
Kids don't
or they're just waiting for them to die so they can take their money.
Or even worse.
It's sad. I'm laughing, but it's sad. It really is sad.
Or, even worse, there are kids dying in weird kind of accidents. You cannot even think about them.
That's horrible.
I guess because everything should be sort of balanced. I guess that's why, like you said, all 3 pillars, they need to be balanced, because I guess if you have more money, then something else should go, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's the reason that it's important to give your money to the right places, so that it's not just about you and about your children. Your children need to learn that too, that it's not just about them, because I know this generation is like the me generation. It's all about me, like how much can I have? But that doesn't help. It doesn't help the child learn, to share. We need to teach our children to share, and this is what's important. I mean, I do see a lot of families that are falling apart because parents have given everything to the children materially, but nothing else.
Right. Also, the reason why I want to send it to the kids, especially younger kids, I want them to get more and more of Judaism, and they love the recordings that I send to them. They love to listen about mezuzahs, to not just saying, oh, mezuzah, you have to, but the stories behind it.
Right. No, 100%.
Yeah. Sorry, a lot of screen time. I'm done.
And also we should teach our children to be charitable and tell them and explain how important this is for everybody, not just for them, and how it can influence on their family, parents, and grandchildren. We have to teach them and explain. They have to also share this and tell about this, about to be charitable to other their friends. It's very important.
To instill it in them. In other words, the children, though, watch the parents and see what the parents do, because if the parents are being very selfish, the kids will continue to be selfish. But if they see the parents are giving, that'll give them the understanding that you're supposed to be giving too.
They have
it's practice what you preach, right? It's practice what you preach. If you tell your kids to be charitable and you do not give anything to anyone, and you show them the selfishness on your part, of course they're going to be selfish. But if you teach them from very, very small that, you know, it's important, you see someone in the street, or you see a friend that's having a hard time and you go and you help them, then 100% you're right. And that way they can also, they'll teach their friends because that's what they're brought up with. And that's what's important.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else have any comment on the 3 different human needs? Ina, you're very quiet. Where are you?
Yeah, we cannot see you, we cannot hear you. Come on, Ina.
Guys, I'm so sorry. I'm here. I'm so tired, but I'm listening and
Yeah,
trying to
I knew something
participate.
was wrong because Ina's usually the first one to say something. So I was like, where did
I
she go?
know. I'm so sorry. So
Uh,
listening
Ina,
to
why
everything.
are you working so hard?
I know. Oh, good question.
Mm,
Let's solve that problem.
right,
Guys.
right.
Hello.
I know. Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's just one of my teachers, we caught a cold, and one of my teachers had to go get testing, you know, for COVID. So it's the procedure went down the staff and had to figure out the way. But yeah, I'm not cut out to work that hard anymore.
Yeah, that's why you probably feel like you have a cold too. That's usual.
Right. And
That's
let's
when
talk
you run
about the
down.
needs. Right.
Right. No, when you run down, that's what happens. You have to be careful with not being nervous and upset so you don't get sick too.
So true. So true.
That was one of the things on health, remember?
But you know, I don't know how many people do we have in the class?
10.
A lot? I can't see.
10.
10. So
that's why
I just wonder, you know, what do we do if there is a need, right? So one of the needs, but it's not available to you. Like, you know, there is a need that you understand that you have to take care of, but it's not, it doesn't come to you that easy. As you said, one of the needs might be missing, and it's missing and it's missing, and it seems like it's not within your control.
A lot of times it's not within your control. So you have to accept that you don't have it, but you have to try to do something extra special good and see if that's going to help you actually receive that, because not everybody gets all 3. You know, that's what I'm saying, is that sometimes a person can have 2 and the 3rd one just doesn't come, and it's not because they're a bad person or there's something wrong with them. It's because that's not their mission. You know, if a person has like good children and good health, and then the only problem they have is money, you know, I personally feel that that need is the lowest one. So, you know, if that's the case, then you have to thank God for the beautiful kids and the health that you have, you know, because that's already there. Whether that 3rd one, that's what I'm saying, is that 3rd one is not as important as the other 2. So we need to appreciate what we have already. And that's why I ended with gratitude, realizing that, yes, maybe we might not have 1 or 2 of the needs, or all 3 might be on a low stage too. But we need to do the best we can and have gratitude for what we do have already. Because a lot is not really under our control, only because God thinks that we don't need it, because we have a certain mission that if we did have it, we wouldn't do.
True. Let's try to figure out why God wants me to be fat. God
doesn't want you to be fat. That's a choice, by the way. that is one of the only choices. Some people are fatter than others. Some people have a harder time losing the weight than others. But it's not something that you cannot control at all. You might not become very skinny, but you could at least be on the healthy side. So if you eat healthy and you exercise and you try to think positive, the weight might come down. It might not come all the way, because some people are just born more heavier than others. But it doesn't mean that you have to be obese. And I'm not saying, Ina, that you are, because I don't think you are, but you just have to lose a couple of pounds and you'll be perfect. So don't go crazy. Yeah. Yeah. And believe me, for some people it's harder than for others. It really is. I mean, God wanted, you to have certain things in your life to work on yourself in a certain way, whereas another person that's skinny has something else to work on.
That's true.
And you
That
know
is
what?
so
Some
true.
skinny people are unhealthy, by the way. Just because you have a few extra pounds on you doesn't mean that you're unhealthy. Another person could be very skinny. I mean, I know someone in our community who's very, very skinny, but she's very, very sick. It's nothing to do. And she was never fat in her whole life. So, but she still eats sugar and flour and all this bad stuff. But doesn't mean that anything. It's just more important to be healthy than to worry about your weight. I think if you focused on the weight, on the health, I think the weight would disappear by itself. You wouldn't have to think about it. Stop thinking about how many pounds you weigh. That doesn't help anyone, by the way. Julia, what do you have to say? You opened up your screen.
You muted.
You're muted. Unmute yourself. I can't hear you.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I really like this. It's really stand out for me, the nachas from the kids.
Okay.
It speaks so much problem just like this.
Right.
When you have this nachas from the kids.
Right.
You can
And
relax,
you know what?
you can take care of yourself.
Sometimes you have nachas and sometimes it's hard. So you have to count the blessings when you do have the nachas.
Right. And attract the good things, right?
Right.
The more you think positive and you appreciate all those, and
you have to appreciate those beautiful boys that you have.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really amazing class. I wrote down lots of things and I want to make sure, I will do my best to follow. Also the health, like how we eat and exercise, look at it as a mitzvah. It's really powerful.
Right. It is a mitzvah. It is a mitzvah it says, Shemar es nafshasecha. Watch your health, your body and your soul. You have to keep watch on it. You have to make sure that it's in order. Because if you're not healthy, you can't do anything. You can't do mitzvot if you're not healthy. An unhealthy person can't do anything.
It's true.
I mean, it's part of, if you read Rambam, Maimonides, he has a whole book on that. So it's amazing. Yeah.
So, Mattie, how you handle it? Just curious if you just worry too much for the children and...
No. The problem is that I did worry too much at one point, and it was my mistake. And God showed it to me, and he says, okay, you're worried, you're going to get sick. And I did.
But Mattie, it was such a scary time.
It was a very scary time, and you know what? It was a test for me, really, because it was my whole family that was sick. And I was here, and I couldn't do anything because you weren't allowed to go to New York. So I was stuck here, but little did I know that Shayna came back with the COVID too. So I didn't lose out on it. It hit me too.
How was it, Mattie? Was it really you feel it like sick?
5 weeks. 5 weeks.
5
yes.
weeks.
Yeah. I would say 2.5 weeks of fever and not feeling well, and about another 2.5 weeks of feeling weak and still not breathing properly. The lungs don't work. I went swimming last week because we went to Palm Springs. I was swimming for about 20 minutes and then my lungs started bothering me. So I was thinking to myself, like, what's going on? Does it make any sense? I don't have COVID anymore. But they say that, for so far they said for 4 or 5 months, people that have had it do have a little bit of problems with their lungs still. If you go to a doctor and they take a test, if they check your lungs with an x-ray, they can see that you had COVID.
Right.
So there's some sort of thing to it. I mean, I was able to go back into the pool and swim again, but after exercising for a good amount of time, it was a little bit hard. So It was 5 weeks. I mean, I'm saying this this sickness is very hard. And I think that, like you said, if we would, what's her name? Svetlana, if we'd listened to Dr. Zelenko in the beginning, maybe we would have prevented ourselves from getting so sick. Because he said if you take the hydrochloroquine and within 48 hours of getting it, and zinc, you can prevent yourself from getting worse. And now I'm listening to people in New York, and the people that are taking it now, they're not getting sick. They only have 2 days of, whatever it is, and it's gone.
Exactly. And
But where do you get this? Do you need a prescription?
No, actually, hydrochloroquine is over the counter, but I think that they banned it in California. I don't think you can even find it here. But he did say there's another medicine, also over the counter, and I don't remember what it was called. Quincertin. What? Invertin, but he had another name too. There's a couple of different ones. It's a viral medication. He says there's a few different ones that you can take, and also make sure to take zinc at the same time. He says that quercetin or something, he called it. Quercetin?
How much milligrams of zinc?
I don't know. You have to look up Dr. Zelenko. I mean, he has a few.
He has his own YouTube and his own.
Yeah, you can look him up and see. You can see how much you have to take.
But you can take everyday zinc. It's just good for you.
Yeah, if you take zinc every day, it's a good thing to take. It definitely is. It's definitely preventing
for immunity.
From getting worse. Yes, definitely.
There is also Dr. Eyal, Eyal Levitt. He's in New York. He also follows Dr. Zelenko method.
Yeah. And there's someone in Los Angeles too. I can't remember.
Right. No, he has followers all over the world. Yeah. It's just a big game that prevents.
But I'm just saying that if we could have known that at the beginning, everyone could have prevented themselves from going to the hospital. Because you have to remember that this is a virus, and if you can take something viral, it can prevent, from getting worse. And he claims that if you're in the hospital already, it doesn't work anymore. Because it's an antiviral, and antiviral only works at the way beginning of the sickness. Yeah. I know that, so I'm just saying that was a big test for everybody. I mean, it wasn't easy. And I understand why I got it and no one else did. I mean, my husband didn't get it. He was sick for 5 minutes. He had a headache for a couple hours and it was gone. That was the end of it. So
but he was also positive?
Yeah, and so was Chaim. Chaim also didn't have it, and he was positive. So a lot of people get it without being very sick. So,
but you think it's here too?
No. I think it's when your immunity is compromised, or you're elderly. Then you'll get it really bad. But other than that, I mean, if you're young and you're in good shape, you won't get it. Like, my immunity is pretty good, except for I was not in a good place at that point. So I think that's why it hit me.
But
it's funny because all my kids told me that. They said, Ma, it's because you were nervous. That's why you got it. I'm like, yeah.
But Mattie, also your husband put it on the Facebook, and I'm not sure about worldwide Jewish community, but for sure, Russian-speaking Jewish community of San Francisco and Bay Area, we're praying for you and your kids, especially for your kids.
Yeah, he put my kids. He didn't put me because he decided I didn't have it. That was his. He tells me you don't have it because you're just sick because you're nervous.
No, Mattie, you cannot afford to be sick. You are the base of the family.
Yeah, I know. He couldn't really see it. And Mendel said the same thing my husband said. You're not telling us the truth. You don't have it. I'm like, okay. I just thought it was interesting. But Mendel and Vered both had no taste, no smell. So I know that they had it too. Yeah. So whatever. Wow. Anyway, the bottom line is, Baruch Hashem, we're all well now. It shouldn't continue. And in San Francisco, I think COVID's almost gone. I mean, I see it online. It says 4 to 7 people a day, which means a joke. Because the testing that they're doing is ridiculous. A lot of asymptomatic people. So
in San Mateo also 0.
Oh, San Mateo is 0 now? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I know that it's In New York, it's almost gone too. In New York, they're opening schools already. They're actually, I think even the mayor said the 22nd of September, they're opening schools in New York.
In San Francisco, Newsom said that we're not, what was about the chart? It's some kind of very strange chart.
Newsom doesn't care. Newsom doesn't care. He's just not going to open anything.
I know.
It's ridiculous. I don't understand, because in New York, almost everything is open. And here, yeah, Ava.
There were some updates posted today. Some stuff is opening up. It's slow, but I can send to you. There was something that the mayor posted. And also if you go, I can send that to Mattie. And then also if you go to the city website, for COVID, they update that quite a bit. It's we're very slow, but it's, stuff is being updated. And I noticed on today's list, it did mention like for places of worship.
Well, I know last week they said 25%. I don't know if they
or 50 people.
Yeah.
Actually, while you guys are still on, let me see if I'll go over and see if I can find the link to that post and share it with you. I'll put it in the chat, and then when you click on it, it'll go to that. It was on Facebook that I saw today. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I did see last week when I looked, it was 25% opening for synagogues. That's what I did see.
25% of the capacity?
Yeah, 25% of capacity. Yes, and it also said 25% of indoor dining.
Yeah, I heard some restaurant downtowns are open for indoor dining.
Yeah. They said 25%.
No wonder. I saw someone in yesterday, and I said, "They're downtown San Francisco. How can they be inside?"
Yeah, no, he did say that. I just think that it depends on the county. Every county's different. But I know that in New York, they opened a lot quicker. Here, they're taking a very long time to open anything.
Or they just wait until more restaurants are going to go out of business. What about our schools?
I don't know. I mean, the schools, are the schools open here?
No.
I don't have kids in schools, so I don't know.
So if you go to her Facebook page, the mayor's Facebook page.
What does it say?
Here, I'm going to give you guys the link for that. I haven't been watching the news, so I rely on, my dad watches the news every day. I've been staying away from it.
I don't blame you. The news
So here is her Facebook page. I just put it in our chat, and I'm going to go back to it. And so her most recent post, that's her, that's her Facebook page. So.
Well, that's last week.
No, last week they announced the tiered system.
Right.
So as of starting today,
today,
the following can move forward. Okay, so where is it? Places of worship for individual prayer is by mid-September. Outdoor places of worship up to 50 people. And of course, it does say at the end, this is all subject to, it can change. But it's by end of September, the plan is to move forward for places of worship. All must be done safely with masks and capacity limits. And then here's also, let me just see if I can copy this for you guys.
Yeah, we didn't pay any attention to that. We're just doing inside, and that's it. We've been doing that since the way beginning. It just, we were closed for 3 months, and then we kept it open.
So what are the plans for Rosh Hashanah?
So my husband says the second day of Rosh Hashanah, we're going to do something outside in the park, and we're trying to get permits for it. The park says that you can eat out there if 6 people per table. So it gives us something at least. So we're thinking to do like a small barbecue or something, and then the shofar blowing. Yeah, so we haven't filled out the forms yet, but hopefully we will, and we'll have a couple of tables. So it'll work out.
How are you gonna handle a couple of tables? Everyone wanted to come.
Yeah, well, whatever, they can all come, but they can't sit down to eat except for 6 people per table. Anyone can come out there. They definitely can come. I mean, it's outside, so it's not a problem.
People can bring their own chairs.
Yeah, they can do that too. But I think that, what's it called? I think that'll be the only way to do it. We will have Rosh Hashanah services inside, but
Okay.
it's only basically minyan and maybe a few extra people, but not going to do it so big like we usually do because it's impossible. There's no space. Our shul is small. So we've been doing the whole time just basic minyan with, you know, that's it. But with a couple of women on Shabbos, we have a couple of women there, but that's it.
Okay, how about the Rosh Hashanah evening time?
So my husband is working on that, deciding what he's going to do. I haven't talked to him about it. He wants to do the first evening, Friday night, but we need to see how much we're allowed to eat inside at that point. You know, what capacity? What's the capacity?
Okay.
I mean, look, if it's already now 25%, we don't know what's going to be in a couple of weeks. It will change, definitely. So
What's the official capacity of the shul, out of curiosity?
I believe it's 80 people sitting down. So it's probably right now we can have like 30 people probably eating there. But
Who's going to check?
You guys can also
who's going to check? I don't know. I'm not trying to do anything against the law.
No, it's just, you know, for now it's 30 people capacity. In a couple of weeks it might be whatever, 50% capacity,
whatever.
right?
Yeah,
So
right. So we
let's plan for 65, so we'll be okay.
Yeah, we should be okay by Rosh Hashanah, hopefully. We're trying to get the permit for the outside sukkah, so that way maybe we can do even Rosh Hashanah outside.
That's
in the front yard. Yeah, that's what our idea is too, so that we can have more people.
Right.
So that's our thought process, because it's going to be outside. So we'll see if we can. It's very hard to get permits now because there's no one in the office. So we put a couple of calls in. We'll see what happens if they call us back. I don't know. I mean, I see people have permits, so you know, you have to be like my husband, keep calling every 5 minutes until they answer. Yeah, so hopefully it'll be. Anyhow, guys, I'm so glad to see all of you, and we should only have happiness and health and all the 3 needs that we need. You know, healthy ourselves, and as much parnasa as we can to help each other.
Amen.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, that was great class. Thank you so much, Mattie.
You're welcome. Take care, and I'm ending it. Good night.
Happy Thursday. And
Thank you, Mattie.
Happy
Thank
Thursday.
you.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Class, thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.